Millions of Americans on food stamps are facing benefits cuts. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP benefits, are set to fall for more than 47 million lower-income people. That's 1 in 7 Americans. Most of these people live in households with children, senior, or people with disabilities. The cuts will leave people on food stamps with an average of only $1.4 to spend on each meal. The amount could sink even more if the U.S. Congress makes deeper cuts later. Joining us now is our correspondent Colin Campbell to tell us a bit more about the situation there. Colin, tell us how the cutting in funding for SNAP is going to affect millions of Americans. It is a large chunk of the population that does rely on these food stamps. Now,
yeah, that's right. A lot of Americans depend on food stamps every month to depend on getting their food, paying their bills. Of course, the money that's used to pay for food, if they have money left over, they can pay for their mortgage, they can pay for health care and other necessities that people need to survive. And that's why there are large concerns here coming from the White House regarding the major cuts in food stamp programs. And there's threatening to be more cuts that are happening because there's actually a farm bill that's being debated right now, a $5 billion farm bill that the president wants to extend, but members of the House want to cut back. They'd like to cut back about $40 million over the next 10 years. Democrats say that they want only about a small percentage of that, about $4 billion. So there's a big debate over that right now. And of course, many Americans swing in the balance. You said before that 1 in 7 Americans are in poverty. Actually, there are 1 in 4 children who are in poverty right now as well. So you have that statistic of not just adults, but many children are being affected by this. Many children who are being affected by the cuts are also minorities. A large immigrant population coming from South America is also being affected by the major entitlement cuts that are starting to happen already today.
Now, Colin, as so many Americans are dependent on this financial help, why is it that these cuts even go through?
Well, that's because you have 2 dueling parties that make up the Congress. Of course, you have a Senate, democratically controlled Senate. You have a Republican-controlled House. Many conservatives in the House would like to see major government cuts. They believe that the Obama administration is overspending way above its means, and that's why we've been seeing so many debates in Congress over the debt ceiling, over the government shutdown, and they believe that a lot of these cuts should come from entitlement. There's a belief, especially in the Tea Party, that there are a lot of freeloaders in the American system, that there are people who just depend on the government to supply all of their basic necessities, and that they don't have to put back into the system by working or by paying taxes and so on and so forth. So they believe that this is a major problem that needs to be cut back. This will save the government money in the long run and make the country more fiscally responsible. And then you have those on the other side of the aisle who say that this really is not the major problem. The bigger problem is in defense spending, which makes up the majority of the U.S. budget, and that entitlement spending is really not the larger problem here, and that making these cuts, and especially holding people to them, will really make a detrimental impact on their daily way of life.
Indeed, and very quickly, if you can, you did mention that the White House is concerned about these cuts. What is the Obama administration planning to do, though?
Well, the Obama administration says that it will try to urge lawmakers not to make severe cuts in the farm bill that's coming up. The farm bill is the major piece of legislation that would fund entitlements such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as SNAP, otherwise known as food stamps. But really, the president, I'm not sure, really has a lot of leverage here. It already won the battle for the government shutdown and the debt debate for the time being. It's very unlikely that he will have a large impact on some of these entitlement cuts. It looks like the White House will have to make some concessions here, and Americans who are really depending on this government assistance will have to see how it will affect them in the long term.
So more Americans are going to go hungry. Our correspondent Colin Campbell, they're reporting from Washington via Skype. Colin, thank you for that update.